I think you and Habib just went back and forth a little bit about one of the first steps that you outlined, which is like, I forgot how you refer to it, but it's listening, being a sponge, and just instead of going on day one, guns a blazing, really listening to others. So, can you give us a quick overview of some of the other steps that are part of like the leadership plan?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we talk a lot about in this work, and I think Habib, you would definitely agree, is there's frameworks and there's all these things that we have these elements, but like even in terms of steps, like we know that it never all happens in the same time, right? You're bouncing into different spots, and as a leader, you're like, oh, I'm gonna have to lean in here or lean in there, but that you really want to attend to all the elements, right? And so like the first two that I shared. Um, are those reflective ones. Like you need to know who you are. You need to know who you are as a leader. You need to know where you stand, how you define equity. What does racial justice mean to you? What does social justice mean to you? And be real clear about that. And how does that align or misalign with the school? You need to know your context, your community, its history, the history of the organization within the community, because those are not the same thing in many places, particularly for our schools and our public entities or nonprofit entities. And then you get into the work of learning, right? And so what you're talking about, this idea of, you listen with empathy, that your job is to really take the standpoint of what does it mean to experience and know this organization fully from other people's perspectives. And you do that to really get to cultivating an understanding of what this organization is. And that's not work you do by yourself, right? This is work that you're really thinking about who's involved with it. How are you talking to all the right sorts of people, right? Doing student interviews, doing parent interviews, doing community member interviews, doing board member interviews, like really getting that sort of information. Sometimes where you want to be at your office or going to where they are, having interviews at the local McDonald's or wherever the place is that people are hanging out. And you do all of that, and then you bring that data together along with that technical data, right? The reports and this testing data and the academic data and all that kind of stuff. And you make sense of it together. And that's a shared process, right? Like you put the structures that you can really truly understand what's going on there. And you do all of that to figure out what's the story. What is it? What is the story of this community, where it is, its hopes, its dreams, its aspirations, and its fears. And you do all of that to be able to say, we need to tell a new story. I mean, I have worked in a lot of places, and I think it's true of all places, that there is a narrative, there's a public narrative about places. And they are usually not the stories we would tell about ourselves. They are not the stories we would tell about the people we love and the places we love. They're stories of deficits, they're stories of complaints. I mean, I live in Chicago, right? Like the first thing people talk to me about is violence and how I must be afraid to live here. Which, I look at them like, what are you talking about? I mean, the governor or the wannabe governor right now is calling us a hellhole, right? Like these are the stories that get told about places full of people we love, people who love their lives, who love their families. And so part of your responsibility is to create that new narrative, help people tell the story of this place, of this school, of this organization, of this community, as though we love it and there is no place better than this, that everything that we could possibly need is contained within it. And when you do that, then you start the step of action, right? So we're talking about all these other pieces. And look at that, 5 different things before we even talk about doing something, right? Because that's the work. It's building, it's empowering, it's unleashing the power and potential of others to then act, to galvanize a group of people to act and collectively towards achieving that vision and that reality of what their community could be. And all of that swirls in, I think, 2 big things. The first is throughout all those stages, you're building trust and you're learning how to be transparent and helping other people be transparent. This work has to be, selective vulnerability. You're not just telling everybody your business and making it weird, but you are making sure that people know what's up and they know they can trust you and that they know what you say is what will happen. And the other thing that we have found in our own work and in the leaders that we talk to is when you do this work, it unearths a whole bunch of stuff. When you start getting into that collective vision, when you have these conversations about stories that are told about a place, those legacies of trauma that our organizations create, sometimes intentionally, sometimes inadvertently, they surface. The stories parents have about schooling, they surface. The harm done to different communities, they surface. And you have to create space for care for yourself, because those are hard things to hold in concert with people. But you also have to create space for the community to heal, for the community to address these traumas and to care for itself. And so, like, we always kind of think of that as the container around it, right? You're doing this hard work, you're doing this transformative work, but if you're not attending to care, if you're not attending to healing for both yourself and for others, it's going to burn you out. And so for us, that's the whole ecosystem in which you're trying to enter.